Good morning. My name is David Ray. For our chalice lighting, I found this COVID haiku. We isolate now so that when we meet again, no one is missing.
Today, I invite you to join me in a breathing practice. Breathing is the very first skill that we learn as babies. And one of the things that happens when a baby is held by a caring adult is that they feel and hear the rhythm of our heartbeat and our breathing, and it helps them to organize their nervous systems. This is a time when we all might use a little more help organizing our nervous systems. And so, if a breathing practice feels right and safe to you, I invite you to join me in some synchronized breathing. And if not, I invite you just to watch. This is a 5-breath practice, and we'll just use our hand to help us keep track of the 5 breaths. So what you're going to do is either imagine or actually run your finger of one hand along the fingers of the other hand. And as you trace your fingers rhythmically, you're just going to breathe in as you travel up and breathe out as you travel down. In and out, in and out. I invite you now to join me. Breathing in, we travel up, and breathing out, we travel down. In and up, out and 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 down. Let's do that together now in silence. And one more time. In and out. 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 May you feel more connected, more organized, more synchronized.
sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion, blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots only close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Fuente de amor, ven hacia mí, y al corazón cántale tu compasión. Sopla al volar, sube la mar, hasta moldear la justicia de la vida. Arraigame, libérame, fuente de amor, ven a mí, ven a mí.
There's a lot of talk about healing right now. Not only is it our Soul Matters theme for the month of November, but we're being reminded on an hourly basis that the election of 2020 is the most consequential of a generation, if not the century. We're being told that we are in a struggle for the soul of America. Some are touting a false narrative that the choice is between jobs and mobs, and that one side is literally a group of baby-killing pedophiles trying to overtake God-loving patriots. Still, others are screaming about fascism and the rise of a totalitarian state that only wants to destroy the planet after it makes state prisoners of us all. I'm not going to get into my own feelings about all this here. I've written a separate piece about how I feel that I'll link in the description to this message. What I want to raise in this time, where many people are feeling unmoored, unsettled, where many are searching for a way back to some kind of equilibrium, where there are calls for a national healing, what I want to raise is the challenging question of how can we heal when we don't know if we're done being harmed? What does healing even mean without a common understanding of what harm is? For someone who is undocumented, Customs and Border Protection having a cruiser posted outside of the Social Security office is harm through intimidation. Yet, for hardline anti-immigration folks, it makes them feel more safe. A black family moving to a prosperous white suburb from an inner city so their children have access to better schools and more safe streets to play in feels like healing. Yet, for the white elderly couple who has never lived in proximity to blacks in their 60 years on the street, it feels like an invasion. For the devout and earnest pro-life advocate who fought against Roe v. Wade, having a solid conservative majority on the Supreme Court feels like insurance that things won't go further in the direction of extinguishing unborn life. Yet, for folks who fought just as hard to create this landmark ruling, it feels like an erasure, an immortal threat to their life work, and further affront to the rights of women to their own bodies. We talk a lot about safe space, and my friend Mickey Scott Bay Jones wrote a much-quoted piece about brave space. But there seems to be no same space. And frankly, I don't know how to get there. I do know, however, that whatever we do, we have to look to playing the long game with this time and with what we're all experiencing, however we're experiencing it. We cannot go for the feel-good, immediate short-term win. Real healing involves a mutual investment from both those who are harmed and those who are creating the harm, and that requires trust. But I'm always aware of the lessons I've learned from my colleagues who work with the brave survivors of sexual violence or with restorative justice for people who are incarcerated for violent crime. Sometimes we're never granted that mutual consent for healing. The hurt is too deep, the loss too permanent, in an indelible stain. What do we do then? And where is trust? Where is trust when there is no relationship and no indication of a relationship to be had? And what is trust? More than healing, this is the question before us now. Without trust, how do we stop the harm? Again, I don't know. The harms that I'm hearing from people who exist in less progressive worlds than mine are incomprehensible to me. Where not just my skin color, but who I have sex with, which is frankly no one's business, is somehow harmful to them. Where someone's belief that they have a right to possess a lethal firearm chills me to my core, but is the only way they feel safe in this world. I have to ask myself, what would I need to not feel threatened by their feeling threatened by me and my existence, and vice versa? Maybe, before we get to healing, we need to spend some time investing in something else. Peace. Not a brokered peace where it can be bought and traded like goods in a store or a condo on Fifth Avenue, but actual, hard-won, face-to-face peace. In some cases, like the ones I mentioned before concerning sexual violence and incarceration, the only goal might be peace. A humble peace. A truce of sorts. An agreement to disagree. There is no knitting together, no weepy I forgive you embrace. It is an agreement to disagree that comes from a place that is unbelievably tough. It is a place that says, I'm willing to pause long enough to hear you, to recognize you, even if I don't identify with or agree with your pain, even if you have done me grave, irreparable harm. I'm willing to acknowledge you, and you are willing to acknowledge me, and we see each other. The peace won in these instances may be small, but it is also as precious as being human. And even this small peace moves us a bit further. The most important part of peace is being able to agree to not harm each other again from both sides. We have to stop the harm together. My great worry is that the progressive liberal crusade for equity isn't as deeply committed to securing that mutual commitment to peace as it is to stopping the harm from one side of the story. One without the other will always leave us all vulnerable to future harm. What I'm about to say is not simple or easy, and many, many of you will disagree with me. I believe that the mutual agreement will only happen in conversation and contact, and in community with those who we so adamantly oppose. It is excruciatingly difficult. Yet, we have a way to do it. The great miracle of faith, spiritual or ethical community, is that In this instance, it serves as a bridge. The bridge between harm and harmed. Faith can call us into relationship. It can give us a language for disagreement. Spirituality can teach us to find not so much common as neutral ground. Ethical life can demand that we are a reflection of what we ourselves most want to experience in this world: love and, yes, peace. A brief note about politics. Roe v. Wade was fought and won during the Nixon administration. The Civil Rights Act was passed under the executive guidance of a Southern Democrat. Brown versus Board of Education happened during the ultra-conservative, racially apathetic Eisenhower administration. And don't forget, the Berlin Wall went up during Kennedy. And Trayvon Martin, Eric Garner, and Tamir Rice, and the victims at Sandy Hook were murdered during Obama. Presidents and administrations will not guarantee or dictate social outcomes, and they may or may not contribute to the narrative. The actual healing that needs to occur in the United States was called for long before the current administration. The wound is seared into how and why the country was founded and why and how it continues to this day. Healing that harm will require something much more dramatic than a contentious or even violent election. Our job in this moment is to focus on the power of the narrative of love, the narrative of compassion, the narrative of future, the narrative of peace. Indeed, we must not forget that this narrative sits squarely in our lap. It is our mandate. By way of example, let me remind you that we are learning in racial equity work that if we want to see actual justice for Native and Indigenous people, then we need to actually have meaningful relationships with those communities and follow their leadership and direction without co-opting their culture or erasing their needs. Similarly, but much more challenging for some, if we are so very committed to reconciling the differences between Christian conservatives and the spiritual left, then we need to build relationships with those communities as opposed to fomenting our own hatred and bigotry against them as we assume they would against us. We need to be radical peace builders and extend an open, albeit firm, hand to both teach and learn. If we are always in a posture of war, that is exactly what we will get. But I believe we can have a posture that is both liberal and unflinching, while it has a certain openness to hear, see, and recognize a shared humanity. If there is anything that I believe we must be called to now and at all times, regardless of politics, policy, and government, in race, gender, ability, environment, and more, if there is anything we must be called to, it is the full-throated commitment to peace. Until we have peace, we can never have healing. In closing, I would like to offer a prayer. For the victims of the attack in Nice, France, for the children murdered in Cameroon, for the people of Turkey and Greece reeling from earthquake, for those impacted by yet another hurricane on the Gulf Coast of the United States, and for those in danger from fires raging in the West, for the nearly 250,000 souls in the United States alone who have succumbed to the pandemic. On this All Saints' Day, let us honor them. Let us honor them all by committing ourselves in their memory and in hope for a more unified, earth-centered, creature-loving, non-violent future. May we commit to peace for one and for all. Amen, and blessed be.